Early this morning, the government of Turkey informed my administration that they would be stopping combat and their offensive in Syria and making the ceasefire permanent. I've therefore instructed the Secretary of the Treasury to lift all sanctions imposed on October 14th. So the sanctions will be lifted unless something happens that we're not happy with.
President Trump announcing Turkey will stop attacking the Kurds in Syria. The president now lifting economic sanctions that have been imposed on Turkey for the moment. Joining us now is Zuhdi Jasser, former lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy and founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Zuhdi, great to see you. So I'm wondering whether or not we can trust Turkey when they just made a deal yesterday with the Russians.
Yeah, there are a number of reasons, Dave. We can't trust Turkey. They've been close to Iran, not only Putin. But this thing obviously was planned ahead. This wasn't something they threw together in 5 days. And not to mention the radicalization of ISIS and the rebels in Syria for the last 5 or 6 years has been driven by the Turkish jihadists, the Islamists of Erdogan's Muslim Brotherhood type army. So they not only can't be trusted, they're on the other side of the equation. Their soldiers were videotaping jihadi type videos, killing Kurds and committing war crimes on video while they were doing this. So they're not an ally. I worry about them monitoring areas. They let 100 ISIS loose, so the threat has increased. And bottom line is the odd thing now is the crescent of Iran through Syria with Assad into Lebanon is now stronger than ever, and Russia is much more of a major power player in the Middle East than it was a week ago.
Zuhdi, John Layfield here. Thank you for joining us, sir, and thank you, as always, for your service. When you start a fire and then put that fire out, you're not a firefighter, you're an arsonist. And so the president's spiking the football here. I'm not sure why that's being done. It's obviously what presidents do. But if you look at what Putin has done in Syria, when he got into Syria, it wasn't to help Assad. He wanted the port of Tartus, the best deep water port in the Mediterranean. He got that, a 49-year lease. He has a pipeline under Turkey. He wants those oil fields in northern Syria. This seems to play right into Vladimir Putin's hands, does it?
Yeah, let me address two things you mentioned. First of all, listen, give President Trump credit on the fact that he campaigned on pulling troops out, so he was trying to fulfill that. Now, how he did it was a bit impulsive. I think we could have gotten EU troops in there to provide that buffer and not destroy the Kurds, which is really what happened, and allowed Turkey to do that. The second point you make, I have to admit and agree with you that we will fulfill every conspiracy theory if it ends up being our policy that somehow we're going in there to protect oil. A, when we don't need it economically, we're now an oil exporter, as we've said earlier in this program. But B, it's really not what we're doing. We weren't in Iraq for that, and we're going to fulfill conspiracy theories, and it'll be used to radicalize Muslims in the area rather than the reality. So I don't know why we're saying that. We don't need to. And there are far other greater reasons to prevent jihadists, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, to push back Iran, which is really what we should be doing and talking about.
The president would say, look, it's not our problem, that we're not going to risk American blood for these wars that are going to go on, until the end of time. We shouldn't be over there. And if the oil's not important, and I hate to say it, but sometimes, the oil has been important, and we actually have been in places because there's a strategic resource there. Not to feed the conspiracy theories, but that's somewhat still the reality of the world. So if the oil doesn't matter and they're going to fight with each other, just walk us through why we should be there in your view, Zuhdi.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't have to be men on the ground. I think we just need some intel with allies like the Kurds, like Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, etc., those that we can trust. But the reason we need to be there is ISIS commits acts in Istanbul, in Europe, in America, and they're radicalizing people every day. Russia has produced Chechnyan radicals that they export all over the world, so we're the only ones really that are counter-radicalizing, counter-jihadists.
I mean, he doesn't want ISIS either.
Well, that's what he says, but yet the playbook, the exportation of Chechnyan rebels into Syria, the Assads of the world shipping Al-Qaeda into Iraq to kill our troops, to kill Kurds and others, they use terrorism to legitimize tyranny. They're not really in this for the long game against terrorism. Only the free world is. And at the end of the day, we can't forget about Israel. Why are we there? Israel is surrounded by more and more radicalized nations, and to think that we can just leave and somehow Iran is pushing on the door. Lebanon right now is having huge demonstrations and is becoming more and more unstable. We don't want that to fall, become another client state of Iran. We need to have a presence there to maintain the peace, as we do in so many places in the world where our troops are there, but they're not fighting wars. They're simply maintaining peace.
Zuhdi, I wish we could have you here for an hour, but we run out of time. Zuhdi Jasser, a medical doctor, as well as all the other accolades we were throwing to his way. Thank you very much for being here, Zuhdi. Good to see you. Well, Fox Business Alert, take